Welcome to MOTS, where we'll be applying the Manzer or Mosi-Thurlow scale of quantitative analysis of pop culture narrative through a binary system.
Or MOTS! This podcast contains spoilers, mature content, and language. Viewer discretion advised.
Good evening and welcome to Bon Mots. I am Chris Morgan and I am here with Rich Perry.
How you doing?
Scott Thurlow.
I am the Force and I am Force is one with me.
And Stephen Ormosi.
How you doing?
And tonight we are going to review Rogue One, a Star Wars story. And I just want to say one thing. I saw the original Star Wars in 1977. I'm a bit of a purist, and to be honest with you, I'm going to say this right now. This is the first Star Wars movie that's felt like a Star Wars movie since Empire Strikes Back.
I somewhat agree with that, and I think we'll discuss very shortly.
Yeah.
But I do agree with that generally.
But yeah, I just, I figured I'd start with that.
But I'm not a purist. I'm just a casual Star Wars fan. We'll talk about that later.
Just a guy sitting here talking about Star Wars.
Exactly. I know of it.
Okay. And who has the funny logline?
This film is pretty much a Saving Private Stardust.
Yes, agreed.
Okay. Who would like to give us a synopsis? Steve-O?
Sure. This is, first and foremost, a war movie. Follows the misadventures of Jyn Erso.
I think they're misadventures.
Who basically the entire time they're trying to find a way to destroy this horrible weapon that the Empire has created called the Death Star. You guys may be familiar with Star Wars and all the mythos surrounding it.
We'll have to find out about it and then how to destroy it.
If you've lived on Earth for more than a few years, you probably know what the Death Star is, so I don't need to explain all that to you. Suffice to say, it's about her and her band of rebels rebelling against the rebellion to go and try and get these Death Star plans, which play such a large part in A New Hope. So that's pretty much the simple synopsis.
And they get the plans.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, obviously.
Spoiler alert.
Right.
Okay, Rich, would you like to start us off with the introduction?
So the movie starts off without the familiar Star Wars crawl.
Or like one sentence really, of a crawl, sure.
And then shows Jin's father being taken by the Empire and Jin being saved by Forrest Whitaker.
Whatever his character's name was.
Yeah, Saw Gerrera.
It's Forrest Whitaker.
Saw, yeah.
He's basically Che.
Yeah, Che Guevara.
Yeah.
So then, was it about 15 years later, she is now a prisoner on a Empire transport ship, and she's being broken out by a rebel intelligence. I guess he's an intelligence officer.
Sure. Mm-hmm. I don't know what the rebel ranks are or anything, but there's something like that.
He's the guy
he had 2 dots on his shirt.
Yeah.
So he's good.
They basically sent him to get the information that they need from whoever, and him and his group of soldiers break her free to try to use her as a bargaining chip to get an audience with Forrest Whitaker, because he's gotten a hold of a Imperial pilot that has defected and has information vital to stopping the Empire's new Death Star.
Project Death Star, if you will. Quote unquote. It's a working title.
They pick her to be led by the guy that broke her out to go to...
Cassian is his name.
Yes, Cassian.
Sure. Captain Rebel guy.
It's difficult to remember his name even right after the movie. But
it's the thing with Star Wars names.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
They just leave your head as soon as they go in the ears.
Well, I mean, in the first one, you had Luke, Han.
Yeah.
It's just like
regular names.
Leia, all right. nothing more than 2 syllables.
Or at least short names. Yeah.
Yeah. They pack their ship and then head over to Jeddah to try to get an audience with Saw and possibly try to retrieve the Imperial pilot. I think that's where we agreed that the intro ends.
That's about right.
Yep.
I think so. And that's pretty much it. It's a pretty short.
It's kind of a straightforward Star Wars setup,
Yeah.
I guess I want to say. And I am not the biggest fan, but I'm okay with this franchise. I know of it, of course, but I'm not I couldn't tell you all the planets and the details or whatever, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But I know what I know of it, and I thought it was a fine Star Wars setup. In fact, I'm going to keep saying this throughout this episode, so I'll say it here first. I think it was better than Force Awakens to me. So
yeah, without question.
It was a pretty,
maybe to you without question.
Yes. Well, I know we'll get into it, but regardless, I enjoyed it very much. It felt like an old school Star Wars Adventures store.
It was a pretty pretty good Star Warsy opening.
Yes, exactly.
Filled with, of course, like 9 planet changes throughout the first 15 minutes. It's like,
See, I was gonna,
now you're on this planet. Now we're on this planet. Now we're on this planet.
I was going to complain about keeping track of that, but after in the end, I was like, it's fine. Whatever.
The problem
whatever
is,
crap you're on.
Not the problem. The thing is with that, just don't even bother trying to keep track, and you'll be fine. Like it doesn't matter.
Sure, exactly.
They were on Yavin in like one scene, and then
I liked the Chirons. I thought it helped.
Oh yeah, no, they have to have it. They have to tell you where they are. It gives you a sense of place for sure, but
does it really
also
matter?
like you're not going to remember all the 5 planets they went to in the first 20 minutes of the movie. You know,
It's like in the Star Wars universe, planets are like towns.
yeah, exactly.
Precisely. So
When the movie, well, all right, first of all, when I got the tickets, I thought I got for 2D and they switched the theater, so we had to watch it in 3D, and I fucking hate 3D. So I'm sitting there.
the planets look cool though in 3D.
No, I hate 3D. They haven't fixed, they haven't perfected it. But the point of the story is, I got to the point where when it started and you had the ship fly over, I'm like, man, this sucks. I'm like, I wish I knew if there was a movie close, if there was a show closer to it. I'm like, okay, I'll pick a good time.
Theaters.
Yeah, I'll pick a good time to, sneak out. And the movie had me captivated, like, from the word go, because right away when Jin was a little girl, they had the first meeting with the architect guy, and like I was hooked right away. I mean, it was just, to me, it was it was beautifully shot the way the ship went overhead, and I can't wait to see it in 2D. And I don't know, I liked it. I liked the fact that it was a new look for a Star Wars movie. So on the beach, raining, it was great.
You're like those people that hated talkies when they came out, man.
I guess. Well, regardless of your 2D or 3D preference, I thought it was a good intro, and I'll probably give it a solid 1.
Yeah,
without question.
I'm gonna give it a 1 as well.
Scott, would you like to provide us with the body?
Sure. So, as we just said, right about the Jeddah episode incident, I suppose, is where the bulk of the movie then takes off. So they go back, sort of regroup together. In order to keep the pilots separate, I'll say Rebel pilot and Defector pilot.
Cassian and the other guy.
Yes,
his name I
Bodhi.
don't remember. Bodhi.
Yes.
Right.
So,
Oh my god, that sounds like such a surfer name.
Yeah.
also only because of Point Break, of course. But no, so now they're on a mission to go find, what is it, Jin's scientist father, who's been like integral to creating and building the Death Star.
Mm-hmm.
And
a wisecracking robot.
Yes, and they're
K2SO.
whatever droid version of droid they have in this movie is, but he's pretty good. We'll speak about him later. But accompanied by a droid, of course, because Star Wars movie has to have that. And it was fun. So, Rebel Captain's secret mission, as given to him as assigned by the General of the Alliance, is to assassinate her father, because he's allegedly, he's an integral part of building the Death Star. So they want him out of the picture. So they go on that. He hides it from Jin, of course, until she figures it out, and everyone becomes. Oh, they take 2 guys from Veda with them, I guess. A blind monk, and a guy with like a laser machine gun, I suppose, who's his friend. So they're doing that.
Well, they come with them because
Jeddah was
gets
destroyed.
exploded.
yes, because the town was
Yes, they evacuate.
completely
They get on
blown up.
they get on the ship with them and fly away. So now they're going to some other planet that they've already set up, but doesn't matter. Some other installation to find her father. And then meantime,
Emu, I believe it's called.
sure,
Yeah, I think so. It's raining.
the planet where it's raining and it's rocky.
Yeah.
It's not.
Shitty ass rainy
Yeah.
planet.
So while that's happening, then Director Empire shows up, the guy who's directing the Death Star, the construction, and overseeing her father. He shows up to reprimand him, figures out there was a mole in his team, shows up to root it out, does a standard classic evil Empire thing, and like is going to execution, like firing line his whole team
Yeah.
in order to root out the mole. And then, of course, her father confesses it was him, and they all get murdered anyways. And right about that moment, also a backup rebel group is coming in.
Just so we definitely know they're Nazis.
Yeah. Like, I got it. Star Wars. I've always known that. It's clear. So then all hell breaks loose. Her father gets killed in the ensuing chaos, of course, and they have to escape. But now he has revealed the secret weakness. Now it explains why Luke was able to shoot one shot down the fucking exhaust of the Death Star and blow it all up. Because her father, in retconning fashion, her father built that weakness into the...
I love the collective "ohs" that like rang out throughout the theater when that was revealed.
Here you go, Star Wars nerds. We figured that loophole out, finally. Thanks. So then they reconvene back in the Rebel Alliance, but of course it's sort of like a Matrix. Everyone's arguing, we should do this, we should do that, blah, blah, blah. Who knows if she's lying? We don't know if these plans are real. We have no proof.
It could be a trap.
It could always be a trap. That's always a possibility, especially in Star Wars.
Echoes of Akbar.
So
It
then,
should be its own like self-help book.
or just a memoir.
Yeah.
Either way, that's, I guarantee,
On the cover like this.
we would make a lot of money writing that. We should contract LucasArts or whoever, or Disney, whoever owns Star Wars. Doesn't matter. So I think that the body cuts off just when, so after that unrest in the council, not deciding what to do, a bunch of scrappy, almost again, Independence Day style, a bunch of scrappy, rebel pilots and so forth, volunteers, we're like, we'll go with you. We believe you. Let's go to that planet and where the Death Star plans are and get them.
One of them being the noisy frog from those old.
Yeah. Frog guy, alien man. So a bunch of them break off, so they decide to go rogue on the rebels. So as Steve said, the rebels
Yeah.
form up and they fly away to that planet. And right when they decide, of course, to sort of do their own mission on, without any support or without like less support, that is the start of the conclusion.
That's where the name drop happens when they
Yeah.
fly away. Call
Rogue,
themselves Rogue
One.
Yeah, title drop. Right, I forgot to mention that. Sure. So
But,
they throw that in it too. But I thought it was all fine. Like I very much was following the story. I was more bored by Force Awakens for sure during like the bulk of that plot. And this one, I was like, all right, they're moving along actually at a very nice pace. And they're cutting back. Darth Vader like shows up also on the body like real quickly to have a scene, whatever.
Their juggling of the characters really kept me invested.
Yeah, and it was all fine. So I think it was solid.
Okay, and I really like the way they resurrected Peter Cushing.
Yeah.
Now I have to say, like I said, I saw it in 3D, so it
What
takes
did
me
his face look like in 3D?
Yeah, I couldn't tell if it worked or if there was an uncanny valley because I was
It
still
was definitely an uncanny valley.
It
Because-
was slightly off, but
It was more
I feel
uncanny
like if
than
you
uncanny
didn't
to me.
know who that was.
I thought he was alive in real life. That's how much I
Actually,
Star
one of
Wars
the
fan I
people
am.
I saw-
years
one of the-
since the first one came
Peter
out.
Cushing,
Yeah.
man.
One of the people I saw with like
Star Wars
actually had
is the
to
only
ask
thing you know
if he
him
was
from.
dead or not.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm
There
being
you go.
dead serious. I wasn't sure. I know he was old in the original, but he could be Harry Dean Stanton. He could still be alive. I don't fucking know because I don't follow this shit. So, and I wasn't. I only knew it was CG. I like realized it halfway through, and then
Yeah.
after the movie, I was like,
It was like it wasn't obvious that it was CG, but
anyway,
it was.
doesn't really matter. Like,
It was kind
he
of-
was there.
It was weird.
It was like certain times, like the eyes
Yeah.
wouldn't move
You're
with
like,
the mouth.
that was weird.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Like I said, I couldn't
They
tell
did
how
pretty
much of
well.
it was the fuzzy from the 3D or how much of it was.
soon they won't need actors.
Sure.
That's all I'm saying.
But
But either way, I'm saying like for a Star Wars story, as you described it earlier, I enjoyed it and in fact was more invested in it versus like recent-ish ones, and I thought it stood well on its own as well.
I considered 1977 Star Wars to be a perfect movie. It's very simple, very cut and dry. It is derivative, but is done so earnestly and so beautifully. Empire Strikes Back, it was much more intricate. It was a much more complicated movie. And this had that level of it. I mean, the pacing was relentless, but, we might get into that with style, but it really juggled a lot of things all at once. And I thought this movie could have just been a nightmare mess, and it actually was very fluid. The body definitely gets a 1 from me.
I agree. I think that this whole movie throughout did a really good job of keeping me interested, keeping me invested in what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
There were very few, if any, points where I got pulled out of it or was questioning what was going on. Well, I think that the most interesting part of the film is probably the intro and the conclusion. I thought that everything in the body was perfectly positioned to come from the intro well and lead into the conclusion really well.
Yeah.
I definitely agree.
So I'm going to give it a 1.
I have nothing else to add.
I don't know if
it's
anybody else has
Definitely
anything else to
giving it
add.
a 1.
Alrighty.
very solid.
And Steve-O, how does this conclude?
They go to the planet. What's the planet called? Anybody?
It doesn't matter, as we agreed. The last planet,
The
I'm sorry.
They go to the final level.
the one where
And,
the one where the transmitter of the Death Star plans are.
Yeah. So
Like, I think it
It's-
starts with a J.
it doesn't matter.
it's an Empire owned planet.
They got a shield around it.
It's
or
an
whatever,
Imperial
right?
planet, and there's a shield around the entire damn thing, and one entry point. And they
Just real quickly, that reminded me of Spaceballs. With the
Yeah.
fucking shield.
Yes, it did.
Yep.
All right, just making sure.
Keeping all the
I
air
wasn't-
in.
I wasn't the only one, right?
Yeah.
Okay, go on.
for sure. And there's one entry point, and they get in because Rogue One gets in because they have a stolen Imperial
They
ship.
got the defector pilot who knows how to do it.
And they have a pilot who defected, so he knows how to get in. They end up getting onto the planet, and the plan is to basically just leave the ship and then keep going until you succeed or everybody dies.
Mm-hmm.
And
Then it becomes a hardcore war
fairly
movie.
well. You know what the weird part is? It's going pretty damn well until everybody shows up, until all the backup shows up.
Yeah.
And then it all falls to shit for some reason, even though they have all the backup there. But
And then it just becomes like hopeless when the AT-ATs show up.
yeah, at some point, the Empire just shut this shit down.
That's kind of
They're
like at the end of a video game where they don't have it, so they just throw everything at you.
Exactly. See, that's so funny, Chris. Like, it's like a Call of Duty level, or probably a battle,
like-
or like a Battlefront level. Like,
all the,
shit.
Okay,
all
you
the,
regenerated your health. Here come the AT-ATs.
Yeah, all the like rogues gallery of Rogue One are on the beaches, like laying down, suppressing fire, and they're basically a distraction.
It becomes
while
Normandy of Star
Jyn
Wars,
and
kind of.
Cassian and K2 go into the heart of into the lion's den to get the Death Star plans, and so they end up sneaking in to this giant tower that they that holds the plans.
It's like their server farm, but also a transmitter.
And so like there's a bunch of data there. The data that they need that has the weak point for the Death Star is
Just
in
has a
this
picture
building.
of the exhaust says shoot
It's
here.
exhaust. It's just like just an arrow pointing to the exhaust.
Shoot here.
But they get in. There's a lot of it's basically a whole big fight scene for the entire time, outside, inside.
It's a war
wherever.
movie in Star Wars.
It is. It does a war movie really
Awesomely,
well. Definitely
too,
going to talk about that in dialogue and style for sure. Themes and style for sure. But it's they're in the building. They go up several levels. They get the plans, and there's a final showdown between Jyn and the
Krennic.
hell's his name? Krennic.
Director, Empire.
Yeah, the director who kind of formed the team that made the Death Star, basically. And
He was the Oppenheimer of the Empire of the Death Star.
yeah, so they end up transmitting the plans up to the rebels that have shown up at this point. There's a whole like rebel fleet.
Well,
a couple of them get inside the force field, and then Bodhi has to get the shield down somehow and transmit a signal, the signal with the plans up to his rebel friends. So.
Which, just real quickly, that's get the fucking shield down.
Yeah.
That's some Star Wars
Get it
shit,
down. I don't care how you do it. Just do it,
Like-
man.
I like that.
So they end up obviously getting the shield down. They transmit the plans up, and then everybody fucking dies.
That is the key point of this film.
Exactly.
It's intense how and everybody dies in like an epic death scene. It's
Yeah.
fucking crazy.
They die a hero's death.
They die,
for sure.
they die in like the fucking like blast radius to fall out of a Death Star strike.
Well, Jyn and
anybody who's
Cassian
left
do,
alive,
yeah.
Yeah, anyone. Yeah, if they haven't been dying like in the battle beforehand, but sure.
One
It's like
thing
I think most of the rebels were dead by that point.
Yeah.
When they fired the laser.
One thing I appreciated though was, as much as I love Star Trek Beyond, you had that thing at the end with the air thing, and it's like there's 4 latches, and my friend Rob's like, "Of course there is." and I really appreciated when Jyn had to go up and redirect the dish. There was one.
Sorry. System offline. Please reset
Okay.
manually.
Yeah, how is this like she just pulls a switch? It's like, all right, reset.
Reset the
Okay.
router.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you just automatically do that?
But
I
at
feel
least
like you have the technology.
Yeah, it was definitely
The
like,
Empire
okay, this
never
switch
thinks of
doesn't
that.
work. Run out to this parapet to get the other switch. Yeah, that was a little video gamey, but I'm so glad there
But
was
that's
just.
why I kind of like it.
No, I do too. I just appreciate the fact that they didn't say like, okay, there's one on each side. You
It's, like,
have to.
it's stuff like that that makes me think the Empire has a sense of humor.
Seriously.
Let's get some jerk to just go out on this terrifying ledge.
Right. We can talk
Because
about,
It's just to pull a lever. Yeah, right.
we could
makes
talk
it
about like
a line.
Clerks did this, by the way. Talking about like the how efficient the Empire is as a bureaucracy and also building things, but it doesn't matter. Like it's always going to be a flaw like that because it's a Star Wars film.
Sure.
But anyway, go on.
Oh,
The
man,
catwalk without the rails.
So
Yeah, exactly. That's some James Bond shit too.
So I'll say that, like, the death scenes in this were kind of awesome. Like, K2's
No,
death scene.
I don't think kind of like very
was-
awesome.
K2's death scene was great. He's just, like, holding everybody off while he, like,
Fucking pile
gets
of
them
fucking
out of there.
stormtrooper bodies.
Jin and Cassian die by nuclear fire, basically.
Death Star fallout, as I said. Yeah.
What? Do you remember the two?
Everybody. All right.
So the two Jedis, or the Jedi guy and his buddy with the big guns, die pretty epically.
Everything you said is true, but they all have heroic sacrifices. Essentially, like that's what happened. Like each one does something.
It's
to
like they die
move it along.
immediately after their purpose.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. My purpose is complete. Goodbye, world.
Like maybe dialogue, like you said, take every chance you get until you stop getting chances, and everyone does that.
Yeah, what I have to add to this is going to go into theme. So,
all right. Well, I mean, so that's basically the conclusion. They get.
There's one.
I'm sorry.
You got to mention one thing.
One thing that I did not mention.
Do it now.
Darth Vader, motherfucking Darth Vader shows up, and he just blazes his lightsaber.
I love that.
And it turns into a horror movie for like 3 minutes. While he mows down
seriously
rebels. Like, just murdering them. They're screaming bloody murder.
He looks bored throughout the entire thing.
Just, they're just
he just does
blasting
this every
away
day.
at him. He's deflecting blaster shots back into their faces.
One-handed, and also like force choking them and force throwing them around.
Oh my god, they throw somebody up into the ceiling with the force.
And then like slices him in half with his lightsaber.
Oh,
it was amazing.
So good. Guy, as they're getting away with the plan, the guy's like, what did he say? He's like, launch it! Basically crying, like, I got the plans, get the fuck out of here.
I love right before he shows up and they're just like, what about the escaping rebels? He's like, I've already called in Darth Vader.
Yeah.
He'll
handle the rest.
He said Lord Vader will take care of them, and he certainly did. So that happens, and it was fucking fantastic.
And then Princess Leia has the last line.
Yeah.
She
Digitized Leia.
does, 25-year-old Carrie Fisher has the last line of the movie. Wherever the hell old she was in,
Doesn't matter. Young Carrie Fisher, a young facsimile of her.
Yeah.
Gets the plans and kicks off the plot of the first movie.
It leads directly into the beginning of New Hope.
Yep.
And she even says, what's that? She's like, hope. And
and you're like, winking and thumbs up.
She should have been like,
audience,
it's a new hope.
Hey, I wonder if like as an Easter egg, just as a joke, if they like CGI'd in,
probably
Carrie Fisher's like Coke fingernail. Cause you could see it in Return of the Jedi.
Maybe. Anyways, sure.
Wow. Now I'm definitely going to look for it.
Oh, definitely look it up. Look up Carrie Fisher, Coke finger, Return of the Jedi.
Themes.
I'm going to give the conclusion a very strong one because it is awesome Star Wars war movie with badass shit.
Agreed.
My favorite ending to a Star Wars movie.
Yeah. I think it's up there for sure.
It's definitely up there. It is well, I guess because it's super dark. It's like hardcore.
That's why I love it.
Just everybody dies. It's like the ending to The Departed or something,
Sure.
So it got me because like a couple times I'm just like, they're not going to kill everybody off. Although they should. And they killed off a couple people. I'm like, well, they're going to leave these guys alive. And then like by the time it got to the end, I'm just like, all right.
I mean,
how are they killing off everybody else?
Going into this, like right when I saw the first trailer, I'm like, everybody in this film's going to die. I kind of knew that was going to be a one-way trip for all these people.
Awesome. Well, good on you. But it was amazing.
Somebody tell me the line that Leia says in
Put it in the comments.
Where she says something like, people went through a lot of trouble to get this to us. And it's like a throwaway line in A New Hope. And like, I was just like thinking about that the entire time that everyone is dying throughout this throughout the whole end of this movie.
It took a lot of effort.
And to counter Steve, look this up. See if that line is in Return of the Jedi with the second Death Star plans, and Mon Mothma says, many Bothans died to bring us this information.
All right.
So which one of us is right?
I have a comment.
So are we getting another movie with the Bothans trying to get the plans for like the second Death Star?
What happened to them? What's their trouble?
It'd be Rogue 2.
What is a Bothan? I'm surprised it didn't, Anyway, it's on to me with themes. And as Steve said, this is a war movie. And even Gareth Edwards, the director, said he made a war movie in the Star Wars universe and not a Star Wars movie. And I think it shows because the battle scenes, when you watch these Star Wars films, you assume certain people are going to die, certain people are going to live. But this one, even though going into it, I was pretty sure that, it was a one-way trip for these characters, all the battle scenes were really exciting. I mean, like, they did not glorify war. It didn't, when they were talking the battles, it did not look like a video game. It looked like it was a war movie. And like all the deaths mattered. That's why, like even with, the robot K2, K2, his death, I mean, it was
Alan Tudyk.
Yeah.
Alan Tudyk. No, but all the deaths mattered. Even the ones in the fighter pilots. Even the ones that were just
It's
kind of
like this movie surprised me and how it made me feel for every character that died.
Even the fighter pilots, you didn't.
Yeah.
They didn't show. You're
Because,
like, oh my god.
Because they made a good job of like showing all the volunteers that were going on the suicide mission.
Yeah.
And like establishing that they've done terrible stuff and want to make amends.
Yeah.
So like, oh, this battle means something. And then they had those few pilots get through the shield.
Yeah.
So you like cared for each one of them that was flying around in there.
And the funny thing is, I'm sitting there going, okay, they have enough pilots to do in A New Hope. Because I'm actually caring, like, it's just like, don't use all your weapons. You still got to destroy the Death Star. Don't use up all your fighters.
When somebody broke away from the rest of the group and like got, he's like, I need help. Like, and there's nobody around. He just gets blown up. You're like, holy shit.
So yeah, this did not glorify war. It had a tragic ending. And
very tragic.
Yes.
And awesome.
You said it best in the text to me, where you said the bittersweet ending got you.
Yeah.
And without question, and you really care about everybody.
It did unfortunately remind me of Deep Impact.
All right.
The scene on the shore.
Sure.
Didn't remind me of that, so there's nothing against it there. But no, I mean, you guys are right. And I didn't know going into it that it was going to be as much, basically, like you said, Chris, a war film set in Star Wars.
Yeah.
More or less. Until the point where was it Jeddah was a city? The Middle Eastern XP city. Where, like, again, like, it's an equivalent of, like, an IED, like, insurgent ambuch upon the occupying force.
Everything just goes to hell in the middle of the town.
Like, civilians are dying. Like, it doesn't flinching away from anything. And it was awesome. Yeah.
Everybody's just like kind of there, like waiting for it to happen.
It definitely addressed all that. And like you said, it sort of, it wasn't like in your face, but again, it wasn't trying to hide it. And I thought to myself, I'm like, man, they're killing a lot of people. Like, even for Star Wars, like stormtroopers are getting murdered, like seemingly more like brutally, perhaps, and more on mass numbers than they normally would be in a Star Wars movie.
We'll get back to this in supporting characters, but I'm going to throw one little thing in here. Like Governor Tarkin in the first movie, basically tells Leia to give him the location of the rebel base and they'll not blow up her home planet. And she gives one and he's like, you may proceed with the operation, fired and ready. And she's like, what? And he's like, you're far too trusting. Like, he's evil. And both times
they're Nazis. I get it.
Both times the Empire uses the Death Star to destroy cities. It's Governor Tarkin. He's just like, yep, destroy him. I mean, it's
he's
just,
the Gobos of the Empire. I get it.
Just get it. It's just so perfect.
Yeah.
Sure, but yeah, I mean, it's hardcore. Like you said, as Rich was saying, as the conclusion was unfolding, I was like, oh man, nobody's getting out of here.
Yeah. No one here is getting out alive.
Yeah, I literally, like, it's funny. I thought that line, like the Doors reference. I was like, that'd be amazing if that somehow came on the soundtrack right now, because that's about what's going to be a conclusion here. And I thought it was like a bold move, ballsy move, even, but well done, well pulled off, and I fucking loved it. I love the way it addressed that and like threw it into a Star Wars movie without like being too heavy-handed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They kind of let the characters speak for themselves. It was really well done. All right.
I agree. I I was wavering upon themes because like that's just a Star Wars movie, but as I thought more about it, and as we just talked out, yeah, it sort of does address that in a pretty damn good way.
It's really good. It goes into the theme that Star Wars always goes into too, about like familial lines, playing really important roles.
Sure.
You have the Skywalker clan in the original Star Wars, and this one it's the Ursos.
Yeah.
Are the big, like this big family, like this big family thing.
Their farm even looked like
you screw over somebody's father, you're gonna fucking pay for it eventually.
I love how every single one of them throws the line that her mother threw at Krennic.
Yeah.
Like he gets it from all three members of the family.
Yeah.
It's like, you're not going to win, right?
Yeah.
Why do you guys keep saying that?
This is what they say.
Stop saying it. Stop saying it.
This is what they say.
It's the rule of three.
But yeah, there was that as well, which is, an important Star Wars thing. I was trying to think if there's any other like major themes in this.
Hope.
Yeah, I mean, of course I'm gonna say
there's
that.
Always there's always an old hope. And
keep hope alive.
However many hopes.
It's like, besides like just hope as a regular theme, they had so many hope spots in this movie
sure
that were just like fucking dashed.
Yeah. Yeah, but like that's...
I'll give it credit on that front.
That's always the thing with Star Wars, though. Like, the good Star Wars movies do a really good job of making everything seem so bleak, at least at some point.
And then having that one spark.
Yeah. But there's always there's always that hope that's still alive in them, which is really important too. I think to having that feel that a Star Wars movie should have.
I guess. I just thought it was something funny, like to close off this, like this is just a hypothetical theoretical thing. It's a thing I've heard of before. In the future, when archaeologists like dig up our old movies and shit, and like they can't put like the continuity together, if they'd seen this one first, like, well, I guess that's the end of that franchise. So, anyways, but I do think Themes deserves a 1, and I'm going to give it a 1.
I'm looking forward in like 5 years to watching all the Star Wars movies chronologically, except for the episodes 1 through 3.
Yeah, I agree.
Not
Sure.
watching those ever.
Sure.
Oh, those are
All right,
awful.
let's not get into that.
There's also a really good espionage movie. Is the last thing I wanted to add.
Yeah,
to
that's true. They had that element,
Yeah.
and you're right.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
But,
Rich or Steve-O?
did we give scores?
Yep. I think we all gave it a 1.
Ones.
All right, excellent. And it's back to Rich with Antagonist.
Antagonist, the Empire.
Empire.
Yeah.
Collectively. Galactic Nazis.
They did a really good job of showing how evil these people were.
Yeah.
More so
They
than
always
I
have
think.
been.
More so than I think most of the other movies.
Yeah, aside from Empire Strikes
Yeah.
itself, I would say.
Yeah.
I mean, they're
Or
not
maybe equal.
Well, that's what made the original Star Wars so good was like people like Peter Cushing doing Governor Tarkin, you know, the whole line, like, you're far too trusting is just such an evil line. And it's just like, you really see that in
And him
in
here.
all
and
its
that-
glory and
on all the other Empire lackeys and
It's-
director
Yeah,
guy.
but I
It's
think-
amazing.
I think that all of their evil is put through a new lens by showing it through Krennic's eyes too.
yeah.
Where he's like, he fashions himself as like this big evil badass who's supposed to be the big bad of the film.
Yeah.
And you just see him getting punked by literally everybody
Well,
else.
it's just like, it's like what Vader says. That's what Vader says to him.
yeah,
It's
don't
just
choke
like,
on your ambitions.
don't choke on your ambitions.
As he's force choking him, of course. Yeah.
Everybody's like,
But it
this
was
guy's such a sycophant. Let's just use him until he's no longer useful.
You're right, Rich. That is a super dad joke. But I
That's
think
foreshadowing.
so. The
To him finding
Empire
out he's
is
got
always
kids.
evil. The Empire is always evil, like just pure Nazi
Yeah.
evil. That part, while yes, I believe that they are the antagonist. Like that
I mean, they're just
in general,
by
they are the
default,
antagonists, and
right? They're
and,
gonna
and
have to be.
Krennic is like the face
Yeah.
of them in this
Yeah,
movie.
exactly.
But I think the more interesting thing is, and I'm going to say it here because I don't know where else I can say it, is that the rebels they don't shy away from showing that there's darkness in
yeah.
the rebels.
Well, what was it?
technically-
Parisian?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that opening. He's like,
Cassian? Are you
yes.
talking about the main guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, Cassian.
Cassian, sorry.
Rebel captain, rebel
Yeah,
pilot.
he shoots the
Yeah,
guy.
he
in the
shoots the
beginning
guy.
of the movie.
He's like reassures. He's like,
what?
don't. He's like, don't worry, we'll get out of this. Like turns him around, just shoots him right in the
Yeah.
back.
You're right. I forgot about that moment. but
Mercy
Yeah,
kills him,
exactly.
basically.
in retrospect, you're like, wow.
Or make sure that he can't talk. I'm sorry.
Mhm.
The movie's like, well, now you know what you're in for. Like, this is how this is how the alliance is going to be.
Yeah, and
This is how
Saw-
war is, I guess. Yeah.
Saw
Yeah.
is
Exactly,
like
that's what-
just he just tortures a guy to make sure he's not screwing with him.
Yeah.
And he tortures the pilot.
Yeah, it's just like you may not remember who you were after
Yeah.
this, but who cares?
I need to get this done. But right, but see, I thought to add on to that, Saul's group was sort of like the extremist of the alliance. Like they
Right.
were like we had a falling out. We don't support his methods necessarily. Like really to the
Yeah.
to
So
what
we're
he does.
crazy, but he is.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
in
Exactly.
a way, each character had its past or something
Yeah,
else
no,
be its
sure.
own antagonist. It was really, but again, it
Well, that's
wasn't thrown into your face.
Donnie Yen's character. He's like, or Baze. He says like, we've been in worse prisons than this, my friend.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's right.
And he's
Yeah.
just like,
It's just
I
like
never
sort of
have it. He's like,
rallying
he's like, there are different kinds of prisons.
Carry your
Yes.
person with you. Yeah.
Carry yours with you.
Yes.
Yeah, and you're right. That was a very good line. And so it's all that. So yeah, of course, like you said, the Empire is like by default, like just like card carrying evil, really.
Right. But I see like,
But
so
you're right. Like the
I
fate,
guess it's
like
like a
who represents them?
I guess
is
it's
what
like
you're
a
saying.
secondary antagonist as
Yeah.
well. I see like everybody's own demons and like the things that they're willing to do that don't necessarily jive with being a good person
Sure.
And like fighting their
for
demons.
the cause of the
And that's-
rebellion.
Yeah, and fighting their demons is actually what got them to do that final mission.
Exactly.
And that's pretty deep for a Star Wars movie. So I don't know. Like,
And I would like,
antagonist-wise,
I don't know. That's why I put it here because that's kind of an antagonist to each one of them.
Mhm.
I don't know where else I can
No,
really
no.
mention that.
I agree. No,
But
I think that's a good
I think
point.
that makes it that much stronger. Like the
Mhm.
Empire is always a good antagonist, right?
Yeah.
Of course, they're
They
fucking-
can't not
yeah,
be. one.
They're just pure evil. They're
like I said.
just bearing down on good and trying to crush it out wherever they can find
Real
it.
quickly, you think like if you work for the Empire, you have a business card that says "evil is our business." Like literally.
But I liked how each one of these things, everybody's character antagonist was addressed, but it never became maudlin or it never became, I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but
Too over the top.
it too over the top's
Yeah.
good.
It was
yeah.
never cartoonish. I guess
Yeah.
you might
Yeah.
want to say. And I agree with that.
It wasn't like sickeningly sentimental and.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
All right, so I'm giving it a 1.
I'm going to give it a 1 as well.
Yeah, I'm giving it a 1, like you said. Just my final thought is, yeah, like, because of defaultly the antagonist, but like the face of them as represents, say, Vader and the director and Tarkin himself, all of them collectively had personality and menace to them, so.
Like, as a kid, I never really found, like, Vader too, like, terrifying as a villain.
But now you
until
do.
this.
I was going to say you would have if you saw this movie
Yeah,
first.
if I saw this one first, I'd be having nightmares about him.
Like I said, sure.
I don't know.
Just that one scene, man. It's so crazy.
Yes.
When I first saw this when I was, Star Wars when I was 7. So when you first see on the big screen at 7 years old, Darth Vader walk on the screen for the first time.
I'm sure
I had a
he's
Star
scary.
Wars poster in my room, and like I remember coming home, looking up at it, and going, "Oh man, I'm not going to get to sleep tonight."
Darth Vader's going to kill you in sleep, but
But
anyways.
he was fucking vicious and fierce in this movie. So,
Yes.
so Scott, who is our protagonist or protagonists?
Scientist,
The Alliance.
scientist daughter, and rebel pilot guy, I guess, and perhaps like. So you guys tell me, do you also lump in like defector Empire pilot guy as well in the protagonist?
I counted him as supporting.
Yeah, okay. I was sort of coin flipping.
Bodhi.
Bodhi.
So it's basically like a male female like sort of secret mission while the rest of the support team like helps them out, and that's fine. Like they were fine. In fact, they were pretty good. It's just that traditionally, to me, and we might have mentioned this in other like last year's review, the protagonists of Star Wars film are like the least interesting part. Like they're supposed to be the ones you're invested in, but everything else they're just there to like be your XP essentially.
I don't know. I was invested in Jin's story,
Completely.
not the other guys.
That's what I'm getting to though. Like in this one, I think they did a better job of it as like in that sense. So that's why I'm like wavering about it. His story was like maybe like later on, like right at the end, he was like when he said like, I've done horrible things as well, or things I tried to forget, all for a cause I thought was righteous, or whatever he said. And that was a fine little character moment, I suppose.
I've been doing this since I was 6.
Or whatever. He's like, some people are born into the, the Alliance or fighting against the Empire. Fine, I get it. But I did think like, Jin had a better fleshed out backstory than could have possibly been the case for a Star Wars character and of such nature.
Well, in
And
the same way,
and I
she had a
liked it,
similar
like-
story to like Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, kind of. Of
So
course,
she actually
And the
knew
thing
who her
is-
parents were.
of course they were going parallels and so forth, or at least some
Well, I
kind
mean-
of like
And the
connection.
thing is, I like the way they resolved.
Say aunt and uncle or whatever, you know.
I like the way they resolved her daddy issue
Yeah.
in the second act as opposed to the third one. I mean, it would have been easier for a lesser scriptwriter or a lesser filmmaker to actually throw that in, just to throw one more piece of.
I see what you're
I
saying. and I agree with that.
appreciated how he was dying while she had her reunion with him.
Oh yeah, that's true.
See, it's almost
Look
like
at you. Now I'm dead.
I've got so much to tell you, play.
too bad. Like, it's almost like like, that could have been like cliche and like trite, but it was pulled off well.
It's
Like,
because it's
like,
Mads
yeah.
Mikkelsen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And
Like there was so many.
we'll mention
lines
that later on,
yeah.
but yeah, sure. But yeah, I mean, like, so it might be a soft one, but I don't think they deserve a 0 because I like them and I enjoyed them. I think they did a good job. It's just that traditionally they would have been a 0, but I think this movie, again, using all the elements we talked about earlier as well, like that makes the protagonist, I was more invested in them than I would have otherwise normally been.
Yeah.
Mm.
I like Jin a lot. Cassian was
He
kind
grew
of-
on me, I guess.
kind
I'll
of
say.
whatever. I think they wanted him to be a mix between Han Solo and Luke, and
Yeah.
He was his own entity,
was
though.
kinda like,
he,
eh.
like he.
he was like suave, but also he had his own problem. Like
He was
Sure.
like he was barely suave. He
I
was more, like,
really
rough.
liked how abrasive he was.
rough,
Yeah.
I guess you're right.
He was very. I mean, like you said at the
Yes,
beginning, where he
Gruff is
lets
good.
his friend basically, leads him into a trap.
Yeah,
We're gonna escape. And he's like, oh no, we're not. And
like he's very.
Well, he
he's
didn't
very.
lead him into a trap. He just realized what the
Yeah, yeah,
situation
yeah.
was. He's like,
I think
listen,
he's-
this guy can't talk. I
Yeah.
gotta get the fuck out of here.
Pretty sure he's like the most pragmatic protagonist that we've had in a Star Wars movie.
I think so.
I agree.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
like even Han wouldn't have done that.
I don't know.
He might have, but maybe not
In his
as
younger
soon.
days, we'll find out
Yeah.
in
Yeah,
the
we'll
Han
find-
Solo movie.
I guess we will. But I mean,
We'll
you're
find
right.
out
Like,
soon.
You guys are right. I think it pushes itself over the edge in this particular film. For
yeah,
me.
yeah.
And they did. The acting was perfectly fine. Very solid.
You know what? I liked his character. I liked his gruffness. I liked everything about him. His backstory and like his story wasn't awesome,
It was too cliched.
but Jin's was more than good enough to push
Sure.
it over the edge. So I'm gonna give it a 1 for
They can only afford one good backstory, and the other one is just like there and it's okay.
Yeah, one.
Okay.
Yep.
So everybody gives it a 1. And Steve-O, to you supporting characters.
So let's do our classic thing here. I'm gonna just name one character, and I'm gonna let the rest of you talk out whatever you guys want to talk out. But
Okay.
my favorite supporting character, K2, possibly everybody else's favorite supporting character, but definitely mine. He was awesome.
Mhm.
It was
Every line out of him was gold.
It was good. It was good comedic relief throughout, but also
I don't know if it was gold, but they gave him good lines to say. Go on.
Yeah.
it was real good comedic relief throughout, and also I was attached to this robot.
Sure.
I was rooting for him, and when he ended up breathing his last,
Going down in the
as
blaze
it
of
were,
glory.
yeah.
Yeah.
I was a little bit upset. I was like, oh, no more quips from K2. That's a shame.
You got one more in.
I mean, I loved all the supporting characters, so to pick one out would be ridiculous. But I'm also a fan of Sherlock, so there's 2 Sherlock cameos in here, and the one I'm talking about, the guy who plays Detective Anderson, like when they're trying to figure out the battle plans, whether they're going to go steal this Death Star, he's like, no. And I kept wanting to go, Anderson? You know, it's just
Right.
little Sherlock crossover, but you know,
Crossover or just a
Wait,
a connection.
what was the other one?
He was the general guy. What's his name? General Darvin?
okay, the guy
Draven,
who tells them to assassinate.
Yeah. In Sherlock,
her
he's,
father.
John's,
The guy with the five
Yes.
die
Yeah.
on his shirt.
the 5 checkers.
It looks
pinned-
like a dice.
pinned
It
to
looks
his-
like a die.
Yeah.
So yeah, I couldn't not mention this because any other character I could just go on and on about. I mean, K2 is just amazing. Everybody in here is just like great and fleshed out.
Say, I have 2 favorites. One being Donnie Yen as the blind warrior monk
Yeah.
who just destroyed everybody by somehow using the Force.
Yeah.
Or believing he could use the Force. That's probably using the Force.
Believing he could use the Force and therefore
I mean,
it happen.
His
he
character
was
was-
definitely a Jedi, right?
No, I think he's,
I think he would just like.
See, everybody
touched
says
by it.
no. He was a fucking Jedi. Come
I don't
on.
know.
What does it take to be a Jedi if it's not that? If you can't blindly, if you can't be blind and just beat the shit out
The
of
movie
like a
made
bunch
it
of
he might be
Walk.
he might be force sensitive, but he might not be a Jedi.
Yes, all right. Let's
I
not
think
rabbit
it was-
hole
I think it was
ourselves.
Jedi.
Fine.
are those things not mutually exclusive?
Yeah, it's like the Decker. Is Decker a replicant question? And we'll discuss that later.
All right, so who else?
And what's your other one?
My other one would be I have to throw Darth Vader in there just for now.
Excellent. All right, good call.
Well, you guys took all the good ones, really, but I mean,
No, there's definitely at least one more.
I
good
agree
one.
with all of it. Well, I'm thinking about it. I suppose. It's like, again, yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, Forrest Whitaker.
Saw.
Yeah,
that's what
I
was
mean,
gonna
like-
say, yeah.
He was good. True. Like I liked him as a
I
side
think
character.
for the little bit of screen time that he had,
He
his
wasn't in it that
presence was
often.
felt.
Yeah, definitely. Like I mean, sort of always going to
Yeah.
be the case because he's just that good of an actor.
He's got a lot of gravitas too.
Yes,
Yeah.
he'll bring a lot to a scene.
Just
and
like I love the nod to Vader's respirator.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I thought that too when he first did it. I was like, that's pretty good.
That's great. And I did
So
mention,
you've come to kill me? There's not much of me left.
yeah, exactly.
Come, child, we have a long way to go.
That,
That was pretty good. But so like, I mean, all of that, the actual characters, for sure, I agree. But I think like, I thought this to myself, the world of Star Wars itself, like the world building, like sort of, as you said, I think Steve-O, this movie made me feel sort of being a kid again watching Star Wars. I think maybe it's more style, but I think the planet, like each place they went to could count as its own character because it was distinct and looked really cool.
Yeah.
So like I sort of enjoyed that. I don't know if that like
And
again like you just said, should I mention it elsewhere? I think I'll mention it here. But
and
I liked all the sorry, Chris. I liked all the
No, go
physical
ahead.
characters, the actual actors who are playing characters. All of them are great. If I had to pick my favorite, I would say I agree with Rich. Darth Vader would be up there for me. And maybe the rebel pilot, or the defector Empire
Bodhi?
pilot guy. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's like probably the most important side character, but he's definitely a side character.
Yeah.
I suppose.
Yeah, I was going to mention him if nobody else did, so
But
I'm
yeah,
glad you
so-
did.
I mean, I kind of said my favorite one was the resurrection of Peter Cushing because, I mean, they nailed the Governor Tarkin's character so well. But I also like the little Easter eggs, like Walrus Man and the guy that
Yeah.
Obi-Wan,
We don't like you.
we don't like you. Red Leader was the same, I don't know if they digitalized him.
No Porkins though.
That's
so
what I
it's-
said.
Nope, yeah.
We discussed
Where's
this-
Porkins?
We discussed this off cast at
It's
sadly.
probably in there, but there's like a thin guy playing him.
Yeah.
Maybe he didn't join the alliance yet, so they recruited him for the next
Yeah.
mission.
After
Everyone died on
They
this mission.
did have a heavy set
After all
pilot
the
that
sh-
died.
After all the shit that he
Yeah.
saw, he just started eating himself. He's like,
Sure.
I can't deal with this. I have
That'd be
to eat.
amazing if that
It's like Porkins isn't even his real name. That's just the call sign they gave.
If that became canon, I would love it. But either way, secondary gets a 1 from me
Yeah,
for everything
yeah,
we
for
said.
sure.
And,
Strong one.
and if I
Strong
count the
one.
world building itself, which I do.
Fantastic. And to me, it's dialogue. And as I always say, like, you know, dialogue for me, if the dialogue doesn't give me any groaners and it's really natural and well paced, you know, it's always going to get a 1 from me. And this movie was that in spades. I mean, I think for everything we're talking about, like the character development, how like, you know, looks gave so much, but they had just the, you know, the delivery was really good, but there were a couple of really good lines. I'm sure other people will get to, cause I'll probably screw them up. I just liked in terms of how the dialogue was delivered and, you know, everybody contributed to, if they had exposition. I thought it was really well done. So I'm just going to be short and say this gets a 1 from me.
Yeah, so I was debating this one somewhat, and like at the end of the day, I probably will give it a 1, like the most serviceable of ones. It was very good, like broadly, but there aren't any quotes I can remember. But there's nothing I could say. Oh, that was a stupid line, or I hated it. But I did like you said, Chris, some of the winks and the nods that they threw in, whether like even if it wasn't a line, and what if it was, like for example, was a droid K2 is about to say, "I have a bad feeling." He almost gets the whole line out. But they cut him off. They're like, shut up. Like quiet now.
That was great.
Yeah, so like when they were doing references and so forth to the original ones, like it was fine. I didn't think people were saying anything particularly, I guess they were saying what would make sense, like you said, is natural and need to be said in this sort of story. So I can't fault it for that, but I don't think anything was like stand out amazing, but it gets credit for me. That's all.
I like the fact about that line, since we're on the subject, I got a bad feeling about this. I kind of took that as a meta joke because every movie's got that.
Always
and it's
has
just
that,
like,
sure.
all right, we get it. And this, to me, it was just kind of like, you know, hey.
All right. Yeah,
I
sure.
like that.
Enough of this.
I get it.
Yeah, I think that most of the memorable lines from this movie are going to come from K2 for sure.
Mhm.
Like, there's the one, possibly my favorite line in the movie where he's, you know, where, Cassian gives Jin a blaster. And he's like, do you want to know and K2 says, you want to know the probability that she shoots you with that? It's high. It's very high. Like,
Sure, I mean,
I
that
don't,
was funny.
I don't know what it was
It
like
didn't get
about
to me,
that,
but-
about that line. It's
Or
got me.
the line that got me was when he shows up in the battle after she shoots down the other K2 droid.
Yeah.
He's like, "Did you know that wasn't me?" I was like, "Oh, of course,
Totally.
Yeah,
like,
yes, yeah.
See, like, I not that I dislike those.
It's like, weren't you at the ship because it was boring and you guys were making a lot of noise?"
There were bombs going off. Like, all that
Yeah.
was fine. Like, I don't know. It wasn't cringeworthy. I was like, it's
Now,
okay.
the only line that was cringeworthy for me was like Vader's dad joke.
Yeah,
Nah,
I
that was
agree.
it.
And you love that. You guys love
I
that.
thought it was good.
That took me out of the film for like, because I was either expecting him to like pull a splinter
And he
at
turns
the end
around
of
like
it.
this. He has like this dumb look on his non-face.
I was like expecting him to pull a splinter and be like, "I made it funny."
No, I don't know. Like, again, it was fine overall. Some of the stuff you like, I guess Steve will like, I like less, but
Yeah.
some of the stuff I like, you like less.
Yeah.
But regardless, we can agree that we enjoyed that stuff when it was happening. So,
Yeah, for sure. I enjoyed the dialogue throughout. I definitely can't ding it on dialogue, so
Yeah.
I'm going to give it a
all
1.
right.
One.
Alrighty.
That's
And,
ones for everybody.
Yes, I believe so.
and Rich to style.
This movie was different than the other Star Wars movies. Like, it had a different feel to it.
Mhm.
Like, more gritty.
Yes.
Like, the technology was not as, I guess, otherworldly as it's shown in the other movies. Like, this
Yeah.
one, it's like, it
They're
had
on
like
the ground.
it had like a lived-in feel to it.
Yes.
Like, you believed that these were tools that they used for war. And it was definitely had the darkest tone out of any of the previous films. And I loved every second of it.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what so I was going to say like Star Wars style-y, but again, like we said, there's no best way to describe it, shot as a war film in
Mhm.
Star Wars. So like, you got the ships, you know, the classic scenes of ships fighting in space, having dogfights, and the lasers are going back and forth, while on the ground, stormtroopers are getting mowed down. But like, again, in more disturbing numbers than ever. Like, and like, it's basically a rebel war fight, like shot, again, you could see this being like, if this was not stormtroopers and rebels and just like
Yeah.
soldiers,
Yep.
you could see it being realistic.
It was nice not seeing it from the Skywalker point of view.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah,
like
exactly.
the stormtroopers or the rebels are just seen as like mooks.
Yeah.
They're just like kind of there as window dressing.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, these people actually, like, you care for them.
Yeah.
Like, no matter how little screen time they have.
They're
You're invested when
Yeah.
they're on the screen. Yeah, exactly.
I'm also a fan of the director. First film I saw of Gareth Edwards was a small movie called Monsters, and it basically is a road movie, and it was a very low budget movie, and he used this effect shot for like the ending. It was really well done. And then he did Godzilla, and it was another kind of road movie. I mean, that seems to be the theme of those first two movies is you've got the average Joe thrown into an extraordinary situation.
Which Godzilla did he do?
The
guess-
2014.
Okay. The recent one?
Yeah.
Cranston.
I love that
Were you
one.
thinking the Matthew Broderick
Not the
one?
Broderick
Yeah.
one.
Oh God, that's not Godzilla.
Breaking Godzilla. He did.
No, but
Yeah.
the thing I like about it is these guys were and were not, you know, your average Joe. And I think he does a really good job with exercising the little man, so to speak, to really let them shine. I think he's
Just
a really great director.
Bunch of people with nothing to lose.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they even said that going back to dialogue. But yeah, I mean, you're right. I agree. When it was like sort of like the battles on the ground, that looked like gritty and realistic, and it was pretty hardcore. And even like the classic,
Like,
like
seeing the AT-ATs was fucking terrifying.
yeah, that was all, like
Yeah.
it was almost
Them
like
coming through, you're like,
All right.
oh, fuck.
How about this?
Run!
How about this? Because of
Why'd you running?
because of the I guess the climate of the planet they were on, it was like palm trees and shit. That was like Vietnam, except
Yeah.
AT-ATs
Yep.
are now
That's-
smashing through
yeah.
Vietnam.
That's kind of what that's immediately what I thought as soon
yeah,
as I saw
right.
palm
Did-
tree. Like,
all right, so again, I wasn't alone in that either.
I was like, oh, this is like some Vietnam
That's it.
shit.
That's what I was thinking. I was thinking, oh, Apocalypse Now. I'm like, what
Yeah.
movie am I thinking of?
It's like Platoon also, like,
Yeah.
but,
Yeah.
but then ATs are like dropping napalm on you. So yeah, it's like all of that was great. Again, like I said, the space stuff, the space battles, that's kind of like what you go to Star Wars to see. And I think it was, again, better done than The Force Awakens to me. Like I could see maybe the 3D that you're saying, Chris, maybe that looked cool in 3D. I don't know.
No,
to some people, but
3D.
Chris is never gonna say anything looks
But
cool.
I'm just saying, like-
let's just stop asking.
that's
him.
fine. I'm just saying, like, I could see it lending itself to something like that. Cause it was all well shot, both on the gritty ground war
Yeah.
angle and also on the sweeping, like, space epic scope. So,
Yeah, the one thing that I would add, I guess that we haven't talked about yet, is the thing that I always talk about is the music.
Right.
And of course, this is a Star Wars movie.
Imperial
Listen,
Death March
if-
gets a 1.
if Star Wars movies have bad music, you will hear about it from literally everyone forever. It's never going to have bad music. Even the shitty first three Star Wars movies, not first three, but like the episodes
Prequels.
1
The
through
prequels,
3
Yeah.
had good fucking music. I
Sure.
mean, like, it's never going to be bad. But that said, this movie used it, as all Star Wars movies do really well
This was the
throughout.
Yeah.
This is
Very
the first
good.
movie without John Williams doing the
Yeah.
believe
Yeah.
so, right?
And I have to give props again to Michael Giacchino. He's fantastic. And he did all the Star Trek movies, the, Last Planet of the Apes movie. He's
he did a very
phenomenal.
good variation on the Star Wars. Like you could hear
Yes.
like
Star Wars
the-
theme,
yeah.
Yeah, I agree. That happened. Like, I think they played it a couple times, right? Like, once perhaps towards the beginning, and then definitely at the end. And like, it's something that you don't even think about at this point watching Star Wars movies, like how good the foundational music
Yeah,
is.
sure.
That's
like,
what
and then
made this a Star
you can
Wars
do all
movie
the
for
you
me.
can do
Yeah.
all the variations on that, and
Yeah.
like you can do all that, but like it's the foundation of that John Williams did that's just awesome, and that always adds so much to the style of these flicks.
No, I think you're right. Of course, I agree. The only thing I have that is like, it seemed to me like they use it more sparingly, but when they used it, it was like the perfect moment to use whatever like they were going to use. Like again, in the same way that the Empire is always going to be a good antagonist, the Imperial Death March is always going to sound
Yep.
awesome,
Yeah.
like regardless. But so if they do, so whatever they do with it, it's going to be cool. I think.
And the thing I like about Giacchino, and I mentioned this in the Star Trek Beyond, is he's really good at teasing themes. Like you were saying, the way he kind of modified the original Star Wars theme. And when he built up to the, Imperial March or whatever, he was teasing it and it built up and you felt when it was delivered, it was earned. It wasn't just a, hi, here's the Imperial
Yeah.
theme.
Right. It wasn't there just for the sake of it. You're
Yeah.
right. It was used appropriately, and sure, style is probably one of the strongest ones.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For
the
this
only
one.
thing
Definitely one.
the only thing that bothered me about the style, I did not hear a Wilhelm scream.
I know.
That's what I like. Like I expected
That was awesome.
One of the Empire troops got shot down the well or whatever, like the shaft of the thing, and he just falls.
And
I
there was like
that.
before that when Jin like grabs the ankle of the one guy and pulls him off. I was waiting for it, and it never happened.
There was one or two times where you heard it sound like they were going to do
Yeah.
Wilhelm scream and they didn't. Again, it
No,
was just,
and I'll think
It's
of
like, it's just like
The
the
sound
it's
design
just like
of
the
this was-
opening crawl that never came.
Yeah.
It's like
no. I kind of like that. I kind of like they slow roll this on Wilhelm screams. Like I kind of give the movie credit on that.
I totally do.
So anyway,
That's
Okay.
ones.
Yeah.
So,
ones.
all right. So Scott, would you recommend this movie?
yes, I would. I would say it's one of my, again, being a casual-ish medium level Star Wars fan, knowing what I know of them, and of course the pop culture, like
He's got 2 dots on his shirt.
Yes, I would be a two dice guy in the Alliance, if you will. But no, I like I said, like I know I'm sort of measuring against it, but I liked it better than Force Awakens, which was last year's Star Wars movie. I just think it's one of the better modern-ish ones. I would certainly see it again. I would say that for sure. Mm-hmm. And if people ask me, should I go see it? Is it worth it? I'm like, yes. If you didn't like Force Awakens, and even if you did, you might like this one more. You know, and if you like it in general, it's probably, like you said, one of the darker themed Star Wars movie. And at this point in my life, I very much appreciate that. That's kind of badass of them to do it. And I think we briefly agreed earlier that
especially being a Christmas movie.
Yeah, for sure. Like, hey, you want to go see the Empire kill everyone in the audience, but they get the plans at least? No, I mean, like, yeah, I don't know what else to say. I definitely would say it's worth a see. I would like to, when it gets syndicated or whatever, I'm gonna watch it. I'll leave that one as a background movie on. And yeah.
To me, Star Wars 1977 is a perfect movie. And my only complaint with Empire is that, you know, it's kind of half of a movie. I want to put that in context so you understand what I'm about to say, but this is my favorite Star Wars movie right after Star Wars 77. It's nestled right between those two.
That's fair.
And I just want you to know that I love Empire, but if I'm going to split hairs on them.
This one ekes out Empire for me.
That's high praise.
Yeah.
That's harsh. I think they might be equal to me. Like, I can't say anything. I can't say anything is better than Empire, but I think this one, if not equal, is like, you know, minuscule milliseconds behind it.
That's why I had to use Empire's kind of half a movie, so.
What do you think?
I think it's perhaps a little early, having just seen this movie a couple hours ago, to say that it's better than Empire Strikes Back.
I didn't say it was.
Gotta let the glow wear off.
I didn't say it was better.
Let's hold off for a little bit on making that judgment. But
we'll do a follow-up.
Yes, I do absolutely recommend going to see it. It's a very good Star Wars movie. I've recommended this
to literally everybody I talk to. After I
it's a very good Star Wars movie.
I just sent out like a text bomb.
When after Force Awakens, you know, when I saw it the first time, Beth and I were like, oh, my wife, we're like, oh, that was a great movie. And then, but it didn't sit well after you like a day of it. You're like, oh, okay. And then I went to see it again with my friend Rob, and I was kind of like, all right,
remember seeing it back in 77.
Yeah. Exactly. I remembered it. As Rob. But this was much better. Yeah. I had a thought and it went away. You derailed me, Rich. You derailed me.
I just force choked that thought out of you. So anyways, I think we're all recommending it, and I think probably a stronger, amongst the Star Wars canon itself, a stronger one for me at least.
So we've all given this a 10. And as has become my, what I do when we all give something a 10 is, do you guys think this is a perfect 10 movie?
I think maybe. Like, I guess, all right.
It's hard to tell.
Yeah, I would answer it this way only, Steve-O. In terms of, like, for what it is, for a Star Wars movie, yes, it's a 10 Star Wars movie. I don't know if it's a perfect, like, filmatic achievement, but it's
giving it a Star Wars caveat. Yeah, it's definitely a perfect 10.
It's a damn good movie that I would say, like, is enjoyable watch regardless.
All right. What do you think, Chris?
As for the degree of perfect it is, you know, well, I mean, Wrath of Khan is one of my favorite movies, but there's still one or two parts where I'm like, yeah, I would have removed that line or whatever. But
if somebody was like, rate this movie from 1 to 10, would you give it a 10?
I would give it a 10 in a heartbeat.
I might give it a 9. Like,
no,
I think
outside
I'm
of
with
our
you,
scale.
Scott. I don't know if I would give it a 10. I think that according to all of our questions here, it definitely deserves a 10.
Yes. But I
don't know if I would give it a 10 if somebody was like, is this a 10 movie? Go 1 to 10.
If I'm arbitrarily rating it, I think I might agree with you, but I think it would still be very high.
Would this end up on AMC?
Dude, they're showing Back to the Future 2. This would end up on AMC.
Right.
Okay. Does anybody have anything they want to
add? No. I like this movie a lot. It's a good Star Wars movie and a good war film in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah.
Check it out.
That's all I got to say.
Okay. Well, that's it for Bon Mots. I've been here with Rich Perry.
Don't choke on your ambitions.
Scott Thurlow. Fuck.
I will probably die in my own ambitions.
Stephen Ormosi.
Good night.
And may the Force be with you.
This has been Bon Mots. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time. Music by Chris Morgan. Editing and engineering by Stephen Ormosi. This has been a Lost Signals production. All rights reserved.